Hey, yo, at this point, the only way that the world is going to change is when me and you awaken to who we really are. When each individual on the planet has a human revolution and they remember who they are. So check this out. Page 332. The empowerment of humanity is of the utmost importance in the outcome of the entire scenario. This empowerment cannot come from the outside. This is an inside job that each individual human must accomplish on his or her own. This is not to say that there is not guidance available to trigger and assist. Thus, the purposeful intent to structure the change within the individual consciousness serves a dual purpose. So that means when we awaken within, thus the purposeful intent to structure the change within the individual consciousness serves a dual purpose. It increases the opportunity for individual evolvement and provides the vehicle for the advancement and transcendence of the planetary whole without the danger of life and limb that would be associated with the usual rebellion scenarios that have been repeated over and over to little or no avail. The advantages are many, most of which are yet beyond the limited human mind to comprehend. That will too change. With the acceptance of self and planetary responsibility, the brain/mind will activate to a greater and greater degree. Though purposefully imposed, the limited brain capacity was held in place by the victim consciousness. That in turn was held in place by the desire to be rescued by a source outside the self and humanity as a whole. This further provides the understanding for the weekly programming lessons, stressing the need to ask outside help in all areas of life, to turn over life to outside greater wisdom, and the media deception of the constant stream of victim situations. All is carefully coordinated to keep the victim consciousness firmly anchored within the mass consciousness. It is our purpose to change the mass consciousness to personal and planetary responsibility where it belongs. There's been so many revolutions on the planet. External revolutions, race revolutions, political revolutions. But at this point, instead of being drawn into division, conquer and divide, we need to rise above these things that divide us and recognize that we are one standing against a very small few. And when each of us have our own human revolution, when we recognize that we're sovereign, when we recognize the birth certificate fraud, when we learn about the straw man, when we learn about what the occult have held back from us, true care, when we learn about cause and effect, when we understand that the causes we're making now will co-create the future, when we recognize that there's MK Ultra happening, when they're literally manipulating us, when slavery didn't end 400 years ago, they just put it on the mind. And now it's time for us to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. When we recognize these things, each individual, our environment changes. In Buddhism, we call this Eshofuni, when the self is reflected in the environment because we're inseparable. You must have noticed it in your life when you're in a certain mood or when you're harboring a certain thought, that thing will manifest in your environment. So it's like the butterfly effect. When one person changes, the next person changes. And through heart-to-heart dialogue, through love and compassion and having an open heart and understanding of other people and cultures and ways of being and sexualities and race, when we rise above these things and we transcend these things and we know that it's I and Ubuntu, I exist because you exist. When we recognize Namaste, I recognize the soul inside you. When each individual moves away from the slave religions and activates the highest potential of them religions, that is when we start to create and co-create a utopian future. We go back to Atlanta, we go back to Kemet, when we remember, but this is the only way, a human revolution. Each individual remembering we are all a different aspect of God. I love you. Peace. The real peace sign. Not about division, remember. Unity.